You don't know yet? Yes, we're ready. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Dorset Council's Licensing Committee. My name's Councillor Emma Parker, and I'm Chairman of Dorset Council, and alongside me I have my Vice Chairman, Councillor John Andrews. Do we have any apologies?
Thank you. Yes, we have apologies from Councillors Sarah Williams, Susan Cocking and Kate Weller.
Thank you very much, and I will just remind everybody that obviously that this is a live stream meeting this morning as well. Can we have the approval of the minutes? So I need to approve the minutes of the last two meetings, which was the 29th of June, which was a special meeting, and the 24th of May. Can I have a proposer and seconder? Are you all happy that we sign those minutes off? Councillor Fry to propose. Thank you.
Councillor Heatley.
And to second that, Councillor Heatley. Thank you. And are you all in agreement with that? Yep.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Do we have any declarations of interest? Thank you very much. Okay, I will now move on to our next agenda item, and that is public participation, and we do have a question from a member of the public, which is going to be read out by Councillor John Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. We have one question from Dawn Dines, the CEO and founder of Stamp Out Spiking. What measures are in place to safeguard against spiking within your licensed venues? I think John Newcombe is going to reply on that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's a really good question, actually, Chair, because we do see small numbers of drink spiking incidents, particularly in late night entertainment venues. Some of it's anecdotal. When testing kits are used, actually the results are that there haven't been drink spiking incidents. It's potentially people are drinking too much, feeling like they've been spiked. But actually we are quite proactive in this area. So we do from time to time purchase drink spike testing kits, and we give them out free to our late night venues. We've just put another order in, actually, it's just been delivered, and they're distributed through Pubwatch and via the police. We're very proud of our purple flag in Weymouth, actually, and as you know, we have Safe Space there as well. That's kind of our concentration of late night venues, and where we have seen, and they've been quite small numbers, but where we have seen incidents of drink spiking, they have been in Weymouth. And so we have every weekend, Friday and Saturday night, medical, security, street pastors all working out of St Mary's down in Weymouth Town Centre. They work till 4 a.m, helping people, helping them get home, helping them recover from all sorts of different medical incidents and relationship issues. Every Tuesday we have a meeting with the police and with environmental health, and we look at what's happened at the weekend before, and any sort of incidents of spiking are raised, and we've got action plans. We go and do visits. We've put a bid into the Home Office, Safer Streets 5, which we're just waiting to hear back whether that's been successful. And a part of that is a big training program, a little bit like Best Bar None, called Licensing Savvy. And the drink spiking initiative is a big part of that. So we'll be going in and we'll be helping venues to be safe. We've got the Pineapple Project, where we've got young girls that are at risk and go in and get looked after as well. So there's lots of work going on. I'm happy to put together a written response for the question. But yeah, just to put your mind at rest, we're very active in this area. It's part of our violence against women and girls agenda as well in community safety.
Thank you. Okay, the next agenda item is regarding the statement of gambling licensing policy, and this is to have a look at the draft revised policy that has been prepared by officers and the fact for it to go out to a public consultation. So I will now hand over to John Newcombe again, and obviously we've got Aileen Powell here, who is our licensing team leader as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We've got 6 reports today. I'll introduce all of them, but Aileen's actually authored 4 of those. So she's here to answer any questions, especially if they get a bit technical. But I'll do introductions. So you'll be aware, it only seems like yesterday we brought this gambling policy in, doesn't it? But it's up for review. It's a 3-year cycle on the gambling policy. I think, first off, I'd like to apologise. I didn't realise we didn't have a full council meeting in January, and therefore we're not going to be able to fit with best practice for consultations of 12 weeks. So it's going to be a little bit shorter than that, but we will do a full public consultation. We'll meet all of the statutory requirements, and if there are any sort of significant representations that are received, then we'll bring those back to members for consideration. It's tweaks on this policy, Chair, if I'm honest. We're awaiting the white paper to go through parliamentary process. There will be some significant changes to gambling as a part of that proposal, and then we'll need to do a revamp as soon as that comes in. So all we've really looked at is we've updated some of the statistics to bring them up to date. We've refreshed the links to our other strategies, and where those have changed, we've tweaked those. We've added in some extra paragraphs relating to vulnerable people, and we've updated the EQIA. So all very minor amendments, but we're proposing to put those out to full public consultation and then to bring those back to Licensing Committee on 28th of November. For a recommendation for full council on 14th of December. And once again, apologies that there's going to be quite a short consultation.
Aileen, do you have anything that you wanted to add? No? Okay, thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions?
Thank you. I welcome this report and that it's going into the community. Are we going to keep it simple for the community to understand the fact that it's only minor changes, so they don't have to get too worried about it, and keep it simple?
Yes, thank you. That's a good question. I think what we'll probably do is we'll do a very brief summary of the changes as I've just run through. So I'll pop those in writing and we'll put those on the consultation at the header when the respondents are directed towards the website. So I have been talking to the consultation team because we involve those, obviously, because it's a public consultation. So we'll keep it nice and simple.
Are we able to include any of the potential changes that come at this time? Otherwise, we could be revamping it again in 18 months' time, couldn't we? Are we able to include those at this time, or is that too adventurous?
And that's another good question. So we had an online meeting with representatives of the Gambling Commission a couple of weeks ago, and this exact question was raised. No is the short answer. Until that white paper's gone through, a draft bill has been approved and received royal assent, I think it would be a mistake to update the policy until that actually happens. And we're not entirely sure what the timetable is, but as soon as that's gone through and that is passed and that becomes law and those changes have got commencement, then we'll bring the policy back in. It is extra work for us, but it keeps us nice and within the law.
So just to confirm, there's nothing significant in this new policy other than tweaking to wording, tweaking to graphs and comments and percentages and so on. It's basically a review of it, simple review.
It is, yeah. So what we've done, just to make it nice and obvious, is we've used track changes on the document. So wherever everything we've changed is a different colour, everything that's been removed has been struck out, and everything new has been underlined. So it is nice and simple. There are some extra safeguards in relation to vulnerable people, homeless people, etc., and problem gambling, but only within what we're allowed to do. So there are, you know, and I know it's a bone of contention, especially in relation to remote gambling, but we've done what we can to strengthen it.
Any further questions, Councillor Fry? Councillor Starr.
Thank you, Chair. Well, forgive my ignorance as a new member of this committee, but are you saying that with the white paper you're waiting for, this is going to really make this redundant, this report? Or this yeah. Yeah.
So we're obliged in law to have a gambling policy. It's quite far down the pecking order in terms of its effect on decision making. However, if we don't have a current policy, so if we don't review it before the 1st of February, then if we make any decisions that are reliant on the policy, then potentially they're challengeable by appeal by an operator. So we have to have a policy, and it has to be up to date, it has to be accurate. We do know there are some big changes coming in primary legislation, mumbling my words, primary legislation to the Gambling Act. However, until those are passed by Parliament, we can't update the policy accordingly. So it's a real chicken and egg situation. But we will keep it under review, and when those changes come in, then we'll review the policy and bring it back before members for another consultation. And that will probably be before 2027, when this 3-year cycle comes around again.
Just to add to that, how long have we been waiting for the white paper? And that's where we're at. It's promised and promised and promised, and it just doesn't come forward. And obviously that's what we're sort of bound to. So until that comes out, we are where we are, and obviously we've got what we've got, which is good. So thank you for that. So, did you have any further questions? No. Okay. Right. Councillor Heatley.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I duly looked through at the changes, and the track changes was helpful. And I mean, my impression was it was mainly about vulnerable people, and I particularly welcomed the bit about what gambling businesses can do in, I think it's 1327. I understand why we have to consult now as a statutory matter. Will we make it clear in that consultation that how shall I put it? We're bound very much by the existing legislation, but there is something else in the pipeline, so that we don't. I mean, there's a lot of concern out there about gambling policy, and I slightly frightened we'll generate a whole load of comments that are not comments we can actually respond to at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think it's quite important that we do that we make it quite clear that actually if people have got comments about the forthcoming changes, that until they're received and they're fully understood and they're implemented, then we will probably have to separate those responses in the report that comes to members, and just, you know, what we can deal with and what we can't deal with. We'll do that, but we'll make it clear on the consultation as well that there are bigger changes on the way.
Thank you. Do you have any further questions, Councillor Heatley?
That's fine, thank you.
No? Okay. Thank you. We have no further questions on that, so we'll move on to agenda item 7, and this is for the review of the cumulative impact area.
We got to vote on that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm quite happy to propose item 6.
Councillor Fry. All those in favour?
I was just about to say something. I mean, I am, I think, the only Weymouth member here. The cumulative impact area is important to people who live in the town centre in Weymouth. It helps the situation get no worse, and I am keen on it, and I'm glad this consultation is going forward in the way it is. Thank you.
Apologies there, I forgot to take the vote. I was probably going to take them all on block, actually, but it's all good. Right, so they're going to make me say that again. Agenda item 7 is the review of the cumulative impact area. So I'll now, it's a CIA. And I'll now hand over to John. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chair. So the gambling policy is a 3-year cycle, and the licensing policy for alcohol entertainment licensing, pubs and clubs, that used to be a 3-year cycle as well. So there were some changes made a few years ago to actually push that to a 5-year cycle. But within the guidance, this statutory guidance, section 182, it states that where you've got a cumulative impact zone or a cumulative impact area, you should review that every 3 years. So it does make it a little bit complicated. So we've got a 5-year licensing policy. However, we are currently reviewing the cumulative impact area. Now, we've only got one. It's in Weymouth Town Centre in Malcolm Regis. It does give a rebuttable presumption that any new applications will be refused. However, committee, as you know, can there's no fettering of discretion on that. If it's a good proposal and it's not going to have an adverse impact, it can be granted. So there's no problem with actually new operators coming into Weymouth if they've got a solid business proposal and they're able to persuade the committee. That being said, we do still see quite high levels of alcohol-related crime and disorder in Weymouth Town Centre. We have had some problem premises. You'll be only too well aware that we've dealt with those robustly. And so the issues are nowhere near as bad as they were. We've also got our initiatives which are ongoing in terms of Pub Watch, Safe Space, and enforcement activities with the police, etc. So it is better than it was. However, that being said, it could quite easily be viewed as a victim of its own success. So we've got a cumulative impact area. The problems are better than they were. However, if we just removed that zone and we allowed not a free-for-all, but we relaxed the rules on new premises, we could get back to where we were before. So what we've done is we've commissioned a report through our community safety data analyst, which is attached as an appendix, and we will go out to consultation. So we've already had a preliminary meeting with the police, who are aware that things are better, are quite keen that we encourage responsible operators and help them to thrive, but are generally supportive of the cumulative impact area remaining in place at this point. What I was proposing, Chair, is to do a thorough review over the next couple of years and actually to look at the economic benefits of retaining that impact area, and also potentially what it would look like if it wasn't there. And so when we come round to the 5-year cycle on the licensing policy, we'll look at this again. So we won't leave this as another 3 years, because that really would be complicated. So the proposal is we go out to a brief consultation. Again, apologies that it won't be best practice 12 weeks. We need to get this in place by 1st of February, which is when if we're making decisions based on the cumulative impact area, after 1st of February, we need to have reviewed this and have it in place. So another legal requirement. So we'll get that back before Licensing Committee 28th of November, full council 14th of December with a recommendation from your committee. Happy to answer any questions and anything else that's in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions? Councillor Fry.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I would support this community consultation because I think it's a good thing. The CIA is a tool that can be used in Weymouth, and I think we should let the community, particularly the local councillors, have a say in it. So if Councillor Heatley's proposing, I'm happy to second this, and let's see what the community say. It's a very valid tool that can be used, but I wouldn't want to preempt the consultation.
Can I propose, please?
They propose and second in the recommendation that we have in front of us for it to go out to public consultation. And you're happy with the time frame of the consultation? Okay. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, I will now move on to agenda item 8, and that is amendments to the taxi licensing policy. And this is going to be introduced to us by Aileen Powell. Aileen. Oh no, it's going to be done by John.
Sorry, I'm hogging the limelight. Aileen authored the reports, but I thought I'd just start off just by explaining. So our taxi licensing policy is quite new. However, we did say when we brought it in that we might need to review it because we were never going to get it 100% right straight away. It's quite complicated. And so, as you'll be aware, we had a taxi trade forum back in May. Quite a few different recommendations came from that forum, and we've looked at those, Chair. So the next 3 reports are all in relation to proposed amendments to the taxi licensing policy. Now, we haven't presumed that you'll automatically agree those, but our recommendation to you is that if you do agree with each of those reports, that we go out to a full 12-week public consultation on those amendments, those proposed amendments, and then we bring back all of those responses to committee. The last report is in relation to taxi tariff, which is a little bit simpler, but so I won't talk about that just now. But my third report here, so agenda item 8, is just some minor amendments to the existing policy. Nothing too controversial in there. However, the sort of feeling between ourselves and with our legal advisor is actually if all 3 of those reports are proposed to proceed, then that would constitute quite major changes to the policy, and therefore we advise that we put everything out to consultation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Aileen, is there anything you'd like to add? No? Councillors, do you have any questions? Obviously, as you can see, looking at it is in sections, so we will go through each section as it is. Are you happy with the changes that are made to the first part of the policy?
Yep.
Which are the amendments to the actual taxi licensing policy that we've got on 1 to 5?
Happy to propose that, Chair.
Yep. Can I have a seconder?
Happy to second that. They all seem quite clear and straightforward to me.
The plate exemptions. John?
Thank you, Chair. Just bringing you back to the taxi forum, which seems like yesterday. Quite a lot of, frustration, I think, is the word, isn't it? With a couple of operators in particular, and we get it. It's, there are times where it's justifiable to not display plates, and we do understand that. However, we didn't feel that the existing policy was clear enough for members to assist their decision making. We didn't think it was clear enough to assist applicants as to, you know, the reasons why they're applying for a plate exemption and the justification for permitting that. It is important that vehicles are identifiable. You know, it does make a difference. However, if you've got matters of security and you've got a robust enough reason to apply for an exemption, then of course we'll look at that. So what Aileen's done is had a look at how other councils do it, basically. So there's a bit of information in the report and the appendices relating to alternative options, shall we say. And actually, looking through those, it looks that like the old North Dorset policy was probably the best one, the best approach. So that's our proposal, that we run with that, but again, it goes out to consultation, comes back for a decision. It's nice and clear, nice and robust, and hopefully will move us forward in terms of dealing with applications. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you for that report. It's a lot clearer having the policy. I would agree with the policy that was at North, but it was also really interesting to see what other councils do or don't do. It's quite interesting to see what they do, but no, thank you for that, but I think that will make it a lot clearer. Councillors, do you have any questions? Councillor Andrews.
Just one that I'd like to propose, a small amendment, because currently you classify the vehicles as saloon cars, but quite clearly something like a Mercedes GLE or a BMW X5, something in those categories would be acceptable as a luxury vehicle. So that's just the minor amendment I would make, is to include some SUVs, because I know some of the policies looked at it and said only saloon cars, you know, no hatchbacks and things like that. Well, technically, an SUV could be classed as a hatchback, but there are luxury models in those categories, and some clients might like them. Mind you, whether a taxi company could afford to pay £30,000 for a 4 or 5 year old, or more than that, and £570 a year road tax is a different matter. But just for inclusion, that's all.
Happy to look at that, Chair, no problem.
Thank you. Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this revision of this policy. There's a few things in it, and I also welcome the taking on the North Dorset policies. 4.3, but 4.3.1, a business proposal for the type of work and amount of work that they're expecting. I'm aware that taxi drivers and managers are going to be very, very busy people, and we've seen all forms of application in. I wonder whether we could create a template of a document that we would like, the information that we would like, that if people are applying, that they could fill in. So they've just got the boxes to fill in. Then we're going to get the information that we need in the format we would need, because I don't necessarily like copy and paste of everything, but we've seen quite a wide variety in that area. I have more questions in a minute. Do you want to come back on that one?
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. It's a good idea. So I think we were looking at an application form, so yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Looking at 4.3.4, reasons transporting high-ranking officers on and off Blandford Camp. If we're accepting the North Dorset one, we should also consider Bovington and Lulworth and other military establishments within Dorset. So you may want to revisit that wording slightly on that point there.
I think that's a direct result of lifting the old North Dorset policy. But yes, of course, that makes perfect sense to widen that out.
And I'm now looking at 4.3.2. Where is it? 4.3. It's the one around vehicles in pristine condition with no visible defects. We might want to add a bit more to that, because we've seen a wide variety. Whether you think that's enough detail in there, and photographs should be submitted with the application of the particular vehicle. I don't know where we can go a bit more detail on that. no visible defects, does that mean it could have been a write-off and been put back on the road again?
So we do, we're very robust with our vehicle checks. So we have 6 monthly checks, and they're of a much higher standard than the MOT. So anything in relation to a sort of a cut and shunt or structural defect on a worked vehicle that's been repaired would ordinarily come up. So on the DVLA's registration, and also with the mechanic that does the checks. But I'm happy to take that away and have a look and see if there is a better way of wording it. No problem. Thank you.
I also welcome the fact that the vehicle is under 5 years old. We've had a number of vehicles put before us that I wouldn't consider is within that range. The taxi rank and the taxi business is to us, to me and to the Dorset Council, a very important source of jobs and business. And we want to support that. And the executive business is a really one. And it should be select cars and businesses that are doing that, not just any company that's running exempt cars. So we want that to be a really prestigious role and cars that they're running for that role, in my opinion.
Yes, I was just going to say, so I think we have to be a little bit careful not to be too prescriptive. We don't want to be accused of restricting access to overly aggressively. However, I totally understand the requirement to make sure that the guidelines are clear, and that's what we're trying to do. And at the end of the day, it's going to be your decision. I think it's a good idea to bring the photos as part of the application. As this is, these are policy guidelines, I think it's all in how we word it, isn't it? So we'll look at the wording and make sure that we're giving advice, but still giving you the freedom to make decisions based on what's presented to you.
Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. My question's similar to around what Councillor Fry said, having been in the trade myself. I know that people have extensive taxi testing, and so my first question is there any progress in getting the taxi test in line with the DVLA MOT test? Because I know you don't have to have an MOT if you have a taxi test, but you could get stopped by the police because it's not registered on DVLA database. So that's the first issue. The second issue is, can we get the taxi testing stations to make sure they are fitting proper vehicles somehow? I'm just talking off the top of my head, that's all. And it's an every 6 month test, as we know. And if there's bodywork, scratches, repairs and all that, etc. needs done, then automatically the plate's suspended until those defects are fixed and the car's all going. So just want to make sure that's what we can do.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take that if I may. At the moment, the bodywork check is a part of the 6 monthly inspection, so they will be inspected and they will fail the inspection, and then they will tell us, or they should tell us. They do normally inform us when something has failed on one of those inspections. With regard to the MOTs being in line with the inspections, what we're doing is on a case-by-case basis. So obviously they can have their MOT done at the 6 monthly line, or they could have their MOT done at the full licence. But some of the legacy councils, they're a bit out of kilter. So what we do is we look at each one and we work with the operator or the owner to make sure that we can bring it back in line, as long as it's shorter than a year. And we will do that, so we'll shorten the licence and just give them some leeway. But it's always done in discussion with them as to how they want to do it.
I'll just come back on that. So the taxi operator or the taxi driver, if he's a self-running taxi, has to do 2 taxi tests and MOT. Does he have to pay for all 3 of those?
Not necessarily. So yes, they have to do 2 inspections. What you find is because taxis come on the road at all sorts of different ages, they have to have an MOT. So we only need to see that they've got an MOT running. It's then up to the drivers to whether they want to align those inspections and MOT and then only pay for 2 inspections. They still have to have an MOT, but they could have it done at the same time because they're very similar. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Heatley.
Thank you, Chair. I must admit, until I read this paper, I wasn't aware of plate exemptions at all. And maybe the fact that vehicles don't have plates on them means I never noticed them, or I don't move in the right circles, I'm not sure. Sorry, yeah, or I don't move in the right circles. I want to ask kind of a more fundamental question. Some taxi licensing authorities, including some of the predecessors, have not had this exemption at all. And I come from a kind of a position on
They require, for security reasons, that they're not plated, that those vehicles are, they're not easily identifiable as taxis. So on those very rare occasions, and we don't encourage it, then they're permitted to apply to committee for an exemption not to display those plates. They still have to display a plate inside the vehicle, but not on the back. And they still have to be licensed and go through all the safety checks like any other private hire or hackney carriage. What we found was that when we brought the predecessor council policies together, there was a mismatch. You know, there were different ways of doing things. In one of the predecessor council areas, they were quite common and quite easy to obtain. And in other areas, it was the complete opposite. And so what we're trying to do is to get a sort of a compromise between the two. We haven't quite got it right within the existing policy, so hence we're proposing that we tweak it a little bit. But the general rule of thumb is that no, we don't encourage them. We do make it quite hard to obtain exemptions, and if the committee are minded to grant it, then they may, but equally if they're not, then they don't have to. So that's kind of where we're trying to position ourselves.
Sorry, I'm not waiting for the colours to change. I suppose I'm looking for evidence that the policy really is necessary. And I'm asking whether in the places that weren't allowing exemptions at all, whether there were problems arising from it.
That's a contention. So at the taxi forum back in May, we had a couple of operators that are pleading with us to revise the policy in relation to exemptions because they're losing trade. They've put forward a business proposal. They've put forward applications to allow them to not display plates, which have been refused by the committee. And they're looking for clearer guidelines on what's expected and what's required. So in order to help the committee make those decisions and in order to help those applicants understand the rules and what's likely to be approved or not approved, that's why we're proposing to put these guidelines in. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that it's a problem having an exemption policy. I think I'm very keen to move away from one of the council practices where they were very easy to get and very common. I don't want to be in a position where we're allowing large numbers of vehicles to not display plates. I think that would be against public safety and against the ethos of our licensing regime. However, I do believe that there can be a need for these, for a requirement in very specific circumstances, and in order to facilitate that, then I think it is right that we move forward with a slightly more robust policy. It's going out to consultation, of course, so there may be a lot of different views that come back in.
Yes, thanks. And as you say, it's going to consultation and we'll see I'm still a bit sceptical, but we'll see.
Thank you, Councillor Heatley, for your questions. Do you have any further questions? Okay, are you happy with the recommendation that this goes out to public consultation with the changes, or do you want it to come back to us so we can have a look at the changes, then go out, or are you happy for the officers to make those changes?
I'm personally very happy for the changes to be made by the officers and tweaked where appropriate and is required and necessary, and then to go out to consultation. I appreciate time is short, so let's just move with it. Thank you.
I'm happy with that.
Proposer? Rose, Councillor Fry, Councillor Starr second, and are you all in favour? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. Okay, so we'll now move on to agenda item 10, which we have the restricted licences for school transport.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the last proposal for amendments to the taxi licensing policy. So yet again, we're about just over a year in to our new policy, and we are reactive to the trade. We're primarily regulators. That's our view. However, we do work with the trade. We try and facilitate requests. We try and assist them where possible, where practicable, because you know, they're an essential part of our public transport network, especially in rural communities. And there are significant difficulties for those operators that just do school transport contracts, and we see this through our own council colleagues as well. And there can be some time delays in terms of passing through all the necessary checks and requirements, DBS, school transport, knowledge test, etc. So a request is coming to us that we just have a think about maybe issuing a slightly less cumbersome to obtain a licence for a driver. And that's if they're only doing school contracts, so they're just picking up kids, dropping them off at school and going back and getting them again, not doing any other private hire work, not touting for hire obviously, and not taking any other jobs. So they're just doing school transport work. And so that's what this proposal is, that we do allow an additional regime, additional licence, driver licence, just for school transport. The reality is that we can probably work with those operators in terms of their safeguarding training, and we work with school transport as well, with the DBS, and just sort of streamline the process. But the actual sort of key change would be in relation to the knowledge test. So at the moment, we test drivers on their general knowledge about Dorset in particular. You know, where are the airports, where are the hospitals, police stations. You know, if I needed to get from A to B, what route are you going to take me? What's the quickest route? And actually, that's probably not necessary for a school transport driver. They would just need to know where they're picking the kid up from and where they're taking the child to. So it is something that we're happy to look at. Apologies if that's not clear. My explanation it is basically just allowing us to offer an additional driver licence with slightly less robust checks. Now, it doesn't impact on safety at all. You know, we wouldn't be proposing it if it did, and we do work very closely wherever there are allegations of impropriety, and you know, as you know, we do suspend and revoke where those do occur. So it won't have an impact, I'm sure, on safety. But it's a request that's come in and something that we're looking at potentially as an offering.
Thank you. Aileen, is there anything you want to add? No. Questions? Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is going into consultation, so I don't think we need to say too much. 5.4 on 5. Restricted driver badge will be produced in a different colour to full private hire badges. Red and conditions. It doesn't quite read right. And I would also question the use of the colour red, because that implies warning or stop or something like that, whether a different colour could be considered. John, could you come back on that? Because red just seems to me warning, be careful, whatever. And this is not a role we want people to be thinking that way.
I think that might be a typo, Chair, and apologies for not picking that up. I'm not sure why that's in there. If it was in relation to a choice of colour, then of course, yeah, we can amend that. That wouldn't be my first choice, to be fair. But yes, of course. Forgive me, I'm not 100% sure where we are with our colour schemes at the moment. You could, yeah, you could probably advise better. But we will find something suitable that isn't red. Yes.
That's perfect. Thank you. Just take it away. I didn't want to design colours here. You can take that away and leave it. But that came to my attention. But I'm happy to propose, Chair.
Any further questions? Councillor Heatley?
Thank you, Chair. I can see that you don't need the complete knowledge to just drive someone to school and back each day, but it does seem to me there are certain things you'd want drivers to know. You might not want them to know where the airports are, but you certainly might want them to know where the A&E are in case some emergency arises. And there's probably a list of things like that needs to be included.
Yes, absolutely. There are. What we actually review our knowledge test periodically anyway. We had an officer working on it a couple of months ago, did a really good job of redesigning it. It's much more effective. Within that knowledge test, there's also quite a lot of questions about the policy, about what, if you're convicted or you're charged, what do you need to do, what your obligations are in terms of compliance with our taxi licensing policy. So those elements will certainly be retained. I think it's just an ability for us to look at our licensing regime and see if there's any assistance that we can give to school transport operators who are just working in that environment and don't do any other private hire work, in which case those licences would be issued on that basis, that they don't do any other work. And if they do, or they're caught doing other private hire work, then that potentially could be suspended or revoked, depending on the severity. But yeah, I do take your point, and that's certainly something that we'll try to make sure we get that right in terms of pitching at the right level.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? No? Okay. Councillor Fry proposed that we go out for consultation on this.
I'll second.
And Councillor Andrews second. And are we all in favour of that? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to agenda item 11, and we have the Weymouth and Portland Zone Hackney Carriage Fares.
Thank you, Chair. We went quite a few years without having an increase to the taxi tariff, Weymouth and Portland Hackney carriages. And when we did bring that request to committee, the trade asked for more regular increases, but smaller. And we have seen a stabilising of fuel costs, although they are still incredibly high compared to where they were a few years ago. And cost of living, running costs, etc. for operators, everything's on the increase in insurance, tyres, maintenance, oil, everything. So it does make sense to keep these under regular review. It is quite a modest increase. It's a different consultation process to the others. It's just a 14-day public consultation with newspaper adverts and coming back into licensing committee. Doesn't need to go to full council, so it's a much quicker, streamlined process. But again, trying to assist our colleagues in the trade by making sure that they're able to operate businesses, without getting into financial difficulty. We do sometimes get responses to these. We will be consulting with sort of a number of charities in relation to the additional costs for people whose taxis are their only means of transport. So we will bring those comments back, obviously, to committee if they come in. Again, it's just an approval to go out to consultation at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Aileen, anything you'd like to add? No? Do we have any questions? Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Chair. Entirely agree that more frequent and smaller increases is the right way to do it. The paper said that in Appendix 3 I'd find the current charges and the proposed charges, but I can only find the proposed charges. My question is, what broadly is the percentage increase? And I realise there are a number of different items here, but what broadly is the percentage increase here? And how does that compare with a comparable period for the rate of inflation? In other words, is this a real increase, or is it just an inflation increase, or is it below an inflation increase? I just can't get a feel for how big it is. Thank you.
Thank you. It is about 10p per mile increase. I can't give you the exact percentage, but that I would say that's probably well below inflation.
Councillor Fry.
Chair, happy to propose this one. We need to support our taxis. It is a cost with an increasing cost on both running the vehicle, for maintenance, fuel costs, and everything else to do with the vehicle. But I also appreciate, as it's raised, it's a cost of living crisis, and people will be using taxis. So it's that balance to be had, and let's see what the consultation brings back. But in principle, I would support these rises coming in from next year.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I forgot to say this is the maximum permissible charge, so operators are free to charge less if they wish. Yeah.
So I've got a proposal for Councillor Fry, second by Councillor Andrews. Are you all in favour to go out to consultation? Thank you very much. Okay, in that case, I will draw this meeting to a close. Thank you for all attending.